Okay.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to IIUM FM, your campus radio. I am your host Nafisa,
And I am your co host, Shakira.
and this is My Research, a program dedicated to explore behind the scenes of the researches being conducted by our very own lecturers here in IIUM. So, joining us today here is our very esteemed Dr. Abdul Wahed Jalal Nuri, Assistant Professor in Kuliah of Islamic Revealed Knowledges and Human Sciences. So, welcome, Doctor, to IIM FM, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
So, Doctor, before we go deeper into speaking about your research, for those who might be a little unfamiliar with you, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your time here in IIUM?
Okay. My name is Abdul Wahed Jalal. I'm a Kurdish from Iraq. I have been in Malaysia for quite a long time. Before I joined IIUM, I was a lecturer at the University Utara Malaysia, University Malaya, and also ISS Malaysia, Institute of Strategic and International Studies. So I joined IIUM last year, but of course I was in as a part-time in IIUM since 2015, teaching at teaching at the Political Science Department. But now I'm assistant professor at the Department of Fundamental and Interdisciplinary Studies. Yeah, that's all about me.
All right, so that's really glad to know because I, as myself, I've been living here for a long time, so I can relate to that prospect of living in Malaysia for a long time. So, talking about your research on the topic of future studies itself. So, before we get deeper into it, like what exactly is being meant by future study itself? What exactly does it mean?
Okay, to warm up and the discussion about the future studies, let me just give you some brief definitions about the future studies. Then later, when we go deeper into the discussions, inshallah, there will be more elaboration on that. So basically, the futurists or those people who are actually doing these future studies define the future studies as the systematic, interdisciplinary, and holistic study of social and technological advancement and the environment trends, often for the purpose of exploring how people will live and work in the future and the creating the preferable future. There is one international renowned scholar, Suhail Inayatullah. He is originally from Pakistan. Now he is in Australia. He defined the future studies as the understanding of alternative. So to him, we have to understand the alternative. This is the future studies. So possible, probable, and preferred futures, and the worldviews and the myth that underlie each future. So basically, in a nutshell, this is what the future studies is. So back to you.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it revolves around fields such as social aspects as well as technology. So,
Yes.
what is your focus on?
If you look at the future studies, actually, if you look at the academic world as a whole, we have physical science. Under physical science, we have physics, chemistry, and also the computer science, the engineering, and also we have humanities. Under humanities, we have history, we have literature, and then we have arts. Under arts, we have music, we have painting and sculpture, and many others. And then we have social sciences. We have social science is basically the political science and also anthropology, sociology, and also some practical academic work like medicine, like law. So if you look at the future studies, basically we are all. So if you ask any future, okay, what are you, what do you call, under the social sciences or under the science, or basically future studies is a kind of multidisciplinary. So we are looking at the science, we are looking at the social sciences, it is art, we are looking at the arts as well. So with the purpose of exploring the future. and also creating a preferable future. So basically, this is how we can look at it from this disciplinary perspective. But yet, of course, it is not well established academic discipline. That's why you don't find, especially in our Islamic world, a department of future studies, which I am actually striving to establish a department, but yet to materialize. Yes.
Yeah, totally. Because we were attempting to research about it at the beginning, and there seems to be a shortage of information in terms of Islamic perspective, especially.
Yes, correct. Yeah, correct.
Nafisa, if I may ask the question?
Mm.
Yes.
Okay. Doctor, in your research, you're talking about future studies, right? But it is a multidisciplinary studies. But do you have a focus on prospect of future studies? Maybe you're focusing on social sciences.
As I mentioned, we are looking at everything. But before answering that questions, let me actually to look at our story here at IIUM. So how our story started, how we established the unit, and why this unit. Because this is very important, especially in answering your question. So this unit actually is under the Kuliya Center of Excellence. So under the IRKH, we have the Center of Excellence, which is conceptualized to support the accomplishment of the core academic activities of the Kuliya among the academics. So it is established to support the agenda to nurture scholarship through research, publications. So basically, this is how they define, and to look at how reason and revelation are compatible with each other, and also to present it as a as a mercy to the whole world, or rahmatan lil alamin. So under this Kuliya Center for Excellence, we have many units. Each unit is actually part under different departments. So we have, for example, social and development unit. We have policy and area studies research unit. We have psychology service unit under the Department of Psychology. And then we have Abu Hamid Sulaiman unit. So many other center as well. So we have future studies unit. This future studies unit is actually, I meant in the beginning, I want to establish as a center under the IIUM. But of course, it is quite difficult, to go in the very beginning to establish a center. You need financial support, and it's quite very difficult at this time, especially. So that's why we park under this Center of Excellence. So this FSU is actually parked under the Department of FITS, Fundamental and Interdisciplinary Studies. So the question is, why this unit? Okay, as you know, if you look at the Muslim world, we are very lax, far behind Western countries and research institutions in the area of future studies, despite the fact that, as you know, Islam is actually requiring us as a ummah and the leaders of the ummah to be prepared to the best of our abilities for future challenges, to plan for the future well-being of the coming generations, as well as become a competent and exemplary leader to the humankind. So if you look at the Quran, is actually there are many verses encouraging you to look at the future, because Islam is all about future. But unfortunately, we don't have any institutions, any organizations looking at this future. Therefore, this unit aimed to educate first IIUM staff and students with the methods and tools that future is used to assist them to anticipate the future and providing an Islamic perspective. So those tools, of course, it is not value free. So it is actually from the Western perspective, because their approach is just looking at this dunya. Our approach is looking at dunya and akhirah. So I hope that the unit will be able to generate knowledge in the ways that process of how we can, as an individual and also as the university, to deal with the uncertain future. So basically, there is no specific area to focus on. So we are looking at the future as a whole, because the whole world is actually moving towards that kind of approach. We cannot departmentalize the discipline. So, for example, if you want to look at the politics, you have to look at the economy, you have to look at the law, you have to look at the technology, you have to look at every aspect. Then you will be able to give a very broad perspective about politics. And then same goes to economy, same goes to law, same goes to technology. So you have to go for multi kind of disciplinary approach. That's why in our approach is actually we are looking at the I'm now reading about psychology, I'm reading about social psychology, anthropology, I'm looking at the what you call economy, law. So everything is applicable. So we have to look at the everything from this multidisciplinary approach. Yes,
Right.
back to you.
Okay. So basically, you've answered a bunch of questions that we had in mind to introduce this topic, right? But one last thing before we move on deeper into the research itself, we would like to know how many people are there in the unit, and does that include many, many other esteemed professors or doctors from other kuliah as well?
Yeah, under the unit is actually, as I mentioned to you just now,
Mhm.
is we want to be multidisciplinary. We look at the things from different perspectives. That's why we have Prof. Walid from Kuliah of Engineering,
Mhm.
and also we have Prof. Najiba. She's from law. She's
Mhm.
expert in family law.
Mhm.
And then we have Prof. Shukran, our dean. He is a psychologist. He's from psychology. And then we have Dr.
Mhm.
Iyad from Department of Sociology. We have Dr. Humam from English language, and then we have Dr. Nurjanna, Dr. Wan Mazwati, and also we have the student as well. We have
Mm.
so we want to we want to have a kind of broad perspective. So of course, due to the lockdown, due to the MCO, we were not able to come together in. We had some meeting, but it was not that like before. When we meet together and face to face and have a kind of
Mm.
real chat. So it's
Yeah.
quite difficult, to meet through online. Inshallah, if things become normal, we are going to have real kind of activities, inshallah.
Inshallah. Soon.
So in another word, it's a collaborative effort from different fields and departments within UIA,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, because the study actually requiring that. We
Mhm.
need to look at the things from different perspective. It is not, and that's why it's actually parked under the Department of Fundamental and Interdisciplinary Studies.
Right.
Because if it is under any other department, so people think that this is the kind of, let's say if it is under the sociology department, people think that this is sociological study. Or
Mhm.
if it is under the Kuliah of Engineering, people think that this is under the is a kind of engineering
Technology.
perspective. But we want to look at the whole broad perspective of academic world. So this is the new world that we are living in. We have to go back to this kind of approach. So that's, yeah. Back to you.
Yeah. Nafisa? Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, right.
So, as you mentioned, the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic has quite interrupted the whole process of, continuing with this unit and its research. Other than that, do you have any other potential influences that are affecting the growth of this unit?
Actually, the unit is quite young. It is not something which is We just it is just established during June this year. So it is just new, and Alhamdulillah, despite our young years, our young age, we were able to actually to organize many activities and many and also having many projects. So one of our first project actually was I introduced in our unit the IRKH's down road to 2030. So we are looking at 10 years from now. So we had our first workshop, 2 days workshop, 21st and 22nd of July. So in that workshop, we brought together 50 academic and admin staff under the Kulia. So the main aim was actually to identify, describe the necessary and plausible steps, measures, strategies, reforms to be taken in order to move the Kulia forward. Actually, it was meant to be a series of workshops. We supposed to have another one during the October, but unfortunately, due to the current situation, we postponed, inshallah, until further notice. And then the Center for Islamization under the Professor Kamal Hassan, they come up with the Vision 2077. This vision is actually cut across the time horizon of 6 decades, from 2020 to 2077. So looking at all these decades. So Alhamdulillah, the centuries or the Center of Islamization appointed our unit to facilitate for them to come up with the real kind of study. And then same goes to this vision. We managed to have one workshop, and inshallah we are going to have another one soon once this lockdown finish. This is also is a very good study. And also we have just recently our rector come up with a future scenario building for the university. This is actually guided by the futurist Professor Dr. Suhail Inayatullah. And our unit also is part of this facilitating the workshop as well. So tomorrow, by the way, we are going to have a workshop. Tomorrow we are planning to have a kind of scenario building for the university. So our unit is part of the process and having this what do you call coming up with the scenario, inshallah, for the university.
All right.
Yes,
So
back to you.
this is all happening through online conference calls, I assume?
The thing is actually this future studies workshop meant to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
And in fact, actually, we had face-to-face, during October, we had a face-to-face workshop for the Vision 2077. And also I have held some other mini workshop under the Vision 2077. That was also face-to-face. For example, because under the Vision 2077, we have many clusters. We are looking at many things like da'wah, like entertainment, like health. So for each cluster, I managed to organize some mini workshop. That was face-to-face. For the vision, for the future scenario building of the university, of course, is online. So that's yeah. Of course, we have to adapt or adopt the new reality. We cannot simply stop our work. We have to work, and there are many ways actually to do great work. And in somehow it's so this kind of reality should not stopping us from be creative and thinking about the future. Yeah, coming back to you. Yes.
All right. So, what I wanted to ask is regarding your research itself, right? While you're doing it, do you take any influences outside IAUM as you have mentioned before, which you took in, you say that the Islamic countries are lagging behind Western countries in terms of future studies. So do you take Western countries as an influence?
I mean, can you repeat this? Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, so essentially, you said that Western countries are further forward in terms of future studies in comparison to Islamic countries.
Okay.
Do you like take them or their policies in future studies as an influence or reference towards your research?
Yeah, somehow you can say that. Of course, future studies is actually part of my DNA. I am
Right.
interested in future for a long, long time. So I basically previously in my undergraduate, I was just reading books about the future. So I was interested in reading the books like Alvin Toffler, for example, looking at the future shock, what's happened, and also the science fiction. And also I am interested in watching movies, the science fiction movies. All these things, of course, had influence on me how to think about the future. But officially engaged in a future studies kind of work was when I was in ISS Malaysia. So I was part of the process. I was invited by the Academy Science Malaysia. That time they initiated a project envisioning Malaysia in 2050. So for that vision, actually, they invited many stakeholders, people, personalities, professors at the universities. So they wanted all of them to be part of the project. The project is available online. You can Google. So we look at the 2050, how we can see Malaysia in 2050. So that time I was representing ISS Malaysia. So our contribution was geopolitical forecasting for the project. So then, since then, of course, I was engaged in many other workshops and projects. And personally, I started to organize workshop for future studies. And I become the facilitator for that. And that's why anywhere I go, I would like to establish the center and also create this kind of project. But as you know, many people do not believe in this kind of work and also or not interested in the
Mhm.
future studies. And that's the problem, especially in our world, because they are not interested. They are not ready to sacrifice today for the future. They think that, okay, let the future take care of itself rather
Uh-huh.
than to spend our time or resources about the future. Yeah.
So what do
So
you think that we need to create the awareness of you know
okay,
working?
yeah, we have to actually highlight the importance of the future studies because
Mm.
people are actually misunderstood about the future studies. They think
Yeah,
that it's a kind of predictive science.
yeah,
They think that if, let's say, you is a kind of palm reading,
mm-hmm.
or you can learn without uh, you can learn and then with accuracy 100% you can tell people okay, this is how the future will look like.
Right,
And that's why but of course this is not a BOMO kind of exercise or astrological exercise.
right,
Future studies is like Jim Data called. Jim Data is one of the great scholar in future studies. He said that actually future studies is we are studying the images of the future.
right,
So if you look at each individual and group, each one of us having conflicting images at one time.
mm,
So different groups often have very offering or having different futures or images for the future. So my future as a male, my image of the future as a male is different from you as a female. So
yeah,
females' image for the future is different. Western images for the future is different. Non-Western's images for the future is different. So each one of us has different image. So those images actually uh, helping us to take action. So so while the future cannot be predicted, but does not mean that we cannot forecast. Forecast is actually we are looking at the trends, emerging issues, and then based on that we are able to forecast and to tell the people. Of course, this is my what do you call, maybe is going to happen in the future, based on the trends and emerging issues, and also preferred future will be created and envisioned and evaluated all the time and visited and rethink as well.
And you mentioned about the trend and forecasting based on trends for future studies, right? Do you
Yes.
agree that our behavior as a human, collectively would shape the futures in some way?
Okay. Of course, future is actually created. It's not given.
Yes.
That's what Allah says in the Quran. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah will not change you unless you change yourself.
Yes.
So if you look at the future, it's actually we can say that is actually future is the interaction of four things. So in the future we have four things. We have events, we have trends, we have images, and also we have actions. Events, of course, we cannot control it. Events happen whether we like it or not. So tomorrow, of course, pregnant with many events at the personal level, at the organizational level, at the national level. So, for example, for 40 years, the whole world was locked in a Cold War. People are busy, trillions of dollars were spent. That was the event for no reason. I'm not talking about the human life lost during this Cold War. And all of a sudden, we wake up and then they say, okay, the Cold War ended, and now we have the end of history. And then all of a sudden, Iraq invaded Kuwait. And all of a sudden, there was action on Iraq. 13 years, Iraqi people were suffering. And so these kind of events will happen. Tsunami will happen. Earthquake will happen. So this kind of events will happen. This is something we have to look at it. All right. Now, let's go back to the trends. Trends, we have three kind of trends. First trend is actually a continuation of the present and the past. So in order to understand these trends, we need to understand what is happening now and what has happened before. So then based on that, we will be able to forecast, okay, this is how it's going to happen. Just like the communication, the way the communication come about, then based on that, we will be able to forecast, okay, this is going to happen. Some trends are cyclical. This is it needs a kind of a very deep knowledge about history. So you have to know about the history, and also you have to know about the grand theory of the historian, like Ibn Khaldun, for example, like Sarkar, like many other, like Western and Muslim scholars. Each one of them have different perspective about the history. So we need actually to deepen our thinking about the history, how nations rise and how nations fall. So this is cyclical. The last one, the trends, which future is calling it, is emerging issues. This is, of course, this emerging issues is something new. We don't have the experience. If we are able to detect them, we will be able to alter their what do you call before become the problem. We will be able to control them and altering them in our favor. So this is actually here the future studies come in to identify the emerging issues. Identification of emerging issues is quite very difficult. it take a years for you to be expert here. You need to know a great deal about philosophy, about science, about history, about many things in order for you to extrapolate what are the emerging issues. Because there is no data. And also, the problem is with the emerging issues. When you tell the people about the emerging issues, people laugh at you. People make fun of you. And that's why but it's actually, whether we like it or not, it will happen. Just imagine, just 200 years ago, if you tell anyone, okay, in the year 2020, there will be advertisement for a drink on TV, and that drink is very dangerous to our body. This is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is very dangerous. It is teeth rotting, and it will increase the level of sugar in our body. It's very dangerous. But it will be advertised on TV in 2020. Imagine 200 years ago, if you tell people, what will say to you? They will say, they will put you in mental hospital. They say you are crazy. But it's actually now is happening, right? Now we can see, we open the TV, we can see the Coca-Cola being advertised, everybody, even the one who actually doing sports, right? So it's a kind of, because like Jim Dater says that any idea about the future is actually ridiculous. People, the level of our discourse is very low. Just like we are actually going to the beach. This is Jim Dater's example. He said that people actually is to the future study is like they are going to the beach, and then in the beach they are busy arguing about the food. Oh, this is why the food is like that. Who forgot the source? Why we are like this, like this? Like they are busy with small things, and behind them there is a big tsunami is coming. They don't bother about that tsunami. They are just thinking about small things. So if you look at our life, is actually we are like that. We are not looking at the tsunami. We are looking at the small things. Our discourse is, we just look at the problem. We are not looking at the emerging issues. We are not looking at the trends. We are just looking at the problem. We solve one problem, another problem will come. Another problem, okay. But, and that's what also politicians and many others, they just focus on problem. Because that's the problem of democracy. Because if the politician come and say during the election campaign, okay, I'm going to create a preferable future in 2050, do you think people are going to vote for him or not? Of course, he is going to lose, right? So he just talk about 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that's all. So he's not going to talk about the future. Yes, back to you.
So speaking about ridiculous situation, like you mentioned, we are currently living in a bit of a ridiculous situation that we never expected a few years ago, the COVID-19, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So what does the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, have in place of in the field of future studies?
Actually, it is not, to me, it's not a surprise. Because this pandemic is actually, the future is for a long time. They are telling the people, be careful, something going to big happen. This pandemic is actually just a warming up for another things is coming. So at least we are able to think about the future and create the future that we want. We need we need actually to bring this kind of literacy among young people and also the people to think about the future. Because you see, this pandemic, if let's say we were thinking about the future, the things might be different, will not be the same as it is now. So that's how this pandemic actually telling us a lot about how people are ignorant about the future.
Right.
Yes.
So you've mentioned that emerging issues and preferred futures as the basic components of future study, and from what you've told us, it's a complex subject to begin with. You need a lot of knowledge on it. you mentioned philosophy, history, and stuff like that. Do you have any other basic components of future studies that you would like to put forward before I go deeper into the components that you've mentioned before?
You mean okay? Actually, as the future is actually, they argues that okay, the attributes for future, the one who is actually, if you want to become a futurist, you need actually to have a knowledge about everything,
Yeah.
and also you know more than one language, more than one culture. You have to open your horizon about many things. Sometimes you have to look at the things from different perspectives. Looking at the things from different perspective does not mean you forgo your principle and values. No, you have your own value, you have your own principle, but at the same time you looking at other perspective, other way of life, other way of doing things. So there are many ways actually to do many things. So we have to be open, and also study other people's culture, other people's history, other people's background. We should not look at only one perspective. So having said that, does not mean actually, sometimes maybe people misunderstanding me. Oh, okay, so meaning that you forgo your principle. No, of course, you still remain actually as a Muslim, a very strong Muslim, foundational kind of faith you have with Allah, with your surrounding. But at the same time, you should actually look at the world, and that's what actually Quran is actually encouraging you. Quran is encouraging you to study other people's culture, other people's history. If you look at the Quran, more than half of the Quran is actually stories, and Allah asking you take a lesson from their stories. It's not for entertainment only. Of course, it's not entertainment at all. It's we have to take a lesson. So of course, the stories is not, let's say, is not that deep. That's why we need to find out what has happened actually to them, what happens, how we can take a lessons. This is a cyclical kind of things is going to happen, because it might happen. It happens before. It might happen in the
In the
future. In the future, yes. And it's actually, there is one verse in the Quran. Allah says, uh, you know, this verse is actually Allah says, Allah talking about the whole human being. Say in the meaning of the verse, as I can remember, Allah talking about the earth. The earth will be very beautified, and people are thinking that they are in control of their destiny until they become very arrogant and ignorant, and Allah will send the punishment. Because nowadays actually is like that. Now everybody thinking that, oh, I am me, or we are in control of everything, and they beautify the whole world. But in the end, what happens? They actually, they just to fill up their pockets, and many people are marginalized from this uh, future they have created. Yeah,
this
but
future that we are created, it's not justice
yeah,
for all of us.
yes,
Okay. So it's safe to say that future studies is a discipline that goes parallel with Islamic teaching, right? As you've mentioned, how the Quran is encouraging you to learn about. I mean, like plan for the future,
yes,
right?
yeah, of course, yeah, of course. I mean, the whole Islamic teaching is about the future,
Yeah.
because we are talking about akhirah as well. Akhirah is a future, of course. Yeah, so meaning that, and I remember there is one scholar, that scholar passed away, Allah yarham, yarhamhu. He said that you cannot enter paradise unless you establish a paradise on earth.
Right.
So in paradise, in a real sense, in a real paradise, the paradise that there is no what do you call, slandering. There is no cheating. There is no lying. There is truth. That's when Allah is explaining about the paradise. Okay, in paradise, everybody living in peace, prosperity, sharing and caring. So in that real sense, is actually this is what we mean by paradise. So we cannot enter paradise unless we establish a paradise, creating a society, sharing, caring society, a society without lie, a society without what do you call, a society with responsibility, with accountability. So this is the kind of future we need to create.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. So let's talk about the components of future studies, right? One component that really attracts my attention is the future triangle. So you have the push of the present, you have the pull of the future, and you also have the weight that could help or either deter your planning. So could you like explain to us the components of this triangle?
Is actually is one of the methodology for future studies.
Mhm.
This is not the only one methodology.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Professor Suhail's methodology, he has 6 pillars. So other futurists, they have a different way of looking at the future. So this future triangle is one pillar of the future methodologies brought by Professor Suhail. So it's a kind of mapping the present.
Mhm.
So the first stage in future studies is actually mapping. So we are mapping the past, mapping the present, and mapping the future. In order, is a kind of framework to provide a framework for us to for the study. So, for example, in the first step, we look at the history. So the history, what has happened in the past, and then looking at the jumps and ups and down, looking at the continuities, discontinuities, everything. So this is history. And then the coming back to your question, the future triangle is actually mapping the present. So
Mhm.
here we have created a kind of images for the future at the top of the triangle.
Mhm.
So our image for the future.
Yeah.
So let's say we have created a preferable future at the top of the triangle. This future is actually pulling us towards that future. So
Go.
our activities actually all is about that image, because when you have something in your image, it will lead to the action. So this is pulling factor. But we have a drivers. We have to identify what are the drivers actually helping us towards that future. So the pushes, they call it pushes of the present or pushes of the future. So here is actually we have to identify what are the pushes for that image, helping us towards that image. And
Mhm.
then the other side of the triangle is the weight or the
Mhm.
obstacle. We have
Yeah.
to identify what are the obstacles in front of us in achieving that particular future. Then once we identify, the things will be clear,
Mhm.
because sometimes maybe we try many in our life, we try many times many things, but because we haven't identified the obstacles, the real obstacles, we still in the same uh,
Position.
position. So in order to change towards your preferable future, you have to identify the obstacles, the weight, and then you try to address them, how you can solve it them. Yes.
Right. Talking about the futures, now we're moving into the futures, right?
Yeah.
You've mentioned several times on preferred futures. So,
Yeah.
from what I've read and my assignments told me, that preferred futures is actually it has about 3 components, which is extended present, your extended present, preferred future, and less preferred futures. Would you care to explain on these 3 components?
uh, yeah, this is the same thing that I just explained about the trends. So yeah. So something, like when we look at the current trends, some trends is actually continuation of the present. So and also the past as well. So in order to understand these trends, we need actually to identify what is happening now and what has happened before. So in this way, actually, we are able to clear our path towards a kind of future. So actually, all this identification is actually helping you to clear your path. Where are you going? And to create the preferable or desirable future that you want. And also, as I mentioned earlier, some trends is actually cyclical. So meaning that, looking at the grand theory of a historian like Ibn Khaldun, for example, he talked about the rise and the fall of the civilization and also the people as well. Even the people, like Professor Suhail, he talked about used future, his own future. The used future, for example, uh, unfortunately, most of us, we have the used future. For example, at the individual level, I want to become like that particular professor, or I want to become like him. I want to become. So you, as a student, you want to become like somebody. Actually, nothing wrong. You can be like that person, but why you want to become like? You can be yourself. Maybe it's more what you call. It's not good to be like that person. So you have to discover yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And this is the creative way. Uh, Unfortunately, if you look at our developmental project in our Islamic world, we always look at the West. We want to become like developed country with ED. So that's why our outlook for the development is very wrong. We are building more highways, more buildings, more because we want to achieve that future. And in the end, is actually this future is already disowned by them. Now in the Western countries, they are not going for building more highways and building more building or shopping malls. They are going back to the localities because now they believe that their patterns of development were wrong. Now the village life is preferable. But now we are stuck in this way. Still, we are with ING developing, and then we are still building more highways, building more malls. As you can see around, all of a sudden you see new malls. Just on the way to Taman Milati, how many malls you can see?
Yeah.
So that's very sad story. Imagine in the future, in 10 years from now, all of us we live in a very big mall. Yes.
Yes, true. So, okay, you've mentioned about the futures and the trends and how, some of the things that you have in the present might be cyclical in the future, bound to happen in the future. Um, well, we'll talk about the less preferred future. You have preferred future, which is your ultimate goal, but less preferred is essentially when you don't really realize your preferred future. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like,
You mean uh, can you repeat the questions again?
okay, um, if we're not able to achieve our preferred future, right? In the preferred future components, there are less preferred future, which is somewhat maybe half of your goal. So being able to reach that point, although we're not really achieving our ultimate goal, is that a bad thing or it's a good thing because we are in a process of achieving our ultimate goal?
No, the thing is, we can create the future that we want. It all depends on your image and your image and your visualization and your desire for the future. The problem is sometimes we think that this is the best for us. But when we get it, we disown it. And that's why you can see many old people in the jogging tracks. They are actually doing exercise. They try to catch up with their bodies because, while they were young, they were not going for jogging. They were busy to become what you call somebody. Now they are already somebody, but the problem is at the expense of their health,
Health.
at the expense of their having quality time with their family members. So that's why you see they have a family problem, they have health problem. So in that future, they already disown it. They are not enjoying that position. But how is nice, for example, at your young years, you are leading a very healthy lifestyle, having a quality time with the family. At the same time, you are working hard for your future. So when you achieve that future, you don't disown it. You can, appreciate it. Okay, now I'm you satisfied. But unfortunately, organizationally, individually, and also nation-wise, we are actually having a kind of what do you call misunderstanding about the future, or very ignorant about the future. We let the future to take care of itself, and that's very wrong, because the future cannot be left alone. We have to think about it. We have to look at it. We have to become a kind of what you call belief system of belief. We should believe in future studies. We should create awareness among people on a daily basis. You have to think about the future. Why, for example, sometimes at our personal life, we think about the future. Like, for example, all of us know that one day we are going to become old. And that's why we have EPF every month. When for example, in my case, when I get the salary every month, some portion of my salary goes to the EPF. Why? Because I know that uh, 30 years from now or 40 years from now, I'll become old. So at that time, I need money. If not, I will live in old folk house if that time available. I'm not sure, because that time, 40 years from now, the world will be changed. So unless I what do you call, I create that future. So at the personal level, so why we don't think deeper about the future, so that we can create a preferable future. Yes.
So yeah, it is a very new topic that we are, especially for me, because I didn't have much of an exposure on it. It's quite eye-opening. So to conclude our session for today, I would like to ask you, what is your hope for the field of future studies in the nearest future?
Oh, okay. All right. These are very interesting questions, which I'm actually hoping for. I hope that many young people like you, and also our IUM young people, young students, Muslim generations as a whole will join this discussion about the future and be part of this process. As I can see, unfortunately, young people is actually today clearly have many problems, many issues. And one of the biggest that young people are actually facing, they are very pessimistic and ignorant about the future.
True, very true.
So the problem is, with such attitude, is discouraging them from thinking constructively and responsibly about the future. So, and also this attitude setting them up for a low achievement and failure for life. So their expectations of achievement is very low. Oh, it's okay. I want to become, okay, if I get that one, that's enough for me, or chukup. So clearly, one way we can help today's youth is to see that they are well prepared to think ahead and take a charge of their future. So creating this capacity and competency among young people. So the need for the young people is to think about their future, actually becoming very urgent with this great transformation, the pandemic, the complexity of life. So if you can see, actually life choices becoming very complex and very difficult, especially for the young people. Previously was not the case. Previously you could study, okay, I want to become this. Okay, you will become this. But now is not the case. Now you are studying, now you don't know what are you going to be. Now, for example, I study political science. Now I'm working on something else. So the world is changing actually. It's not the case, you can work in your area of studies. That's why we need a kind of multidisciplinary approach. So the young people is actually, I pity them. They are increasingly left out without caring adult guidance, while they are making actually difficult and risky choices. I give you the example. Previously, we lived in a community where parents and neighbors are always close at hand. I remember, my neighbors, they were guiding us. I know my neighbors, by name. And then they keep an eye on us and providing both reprimands. For example, if let's say we do bad behavior, my neighbor used to scolding me, hey, why you do that? And also when I do good things, praising me. But now the neighbors, we don't know them, who they are. And then the people actually, they are their parents abandoning them because both parents are working and they're at home. So who is actually taking care of them? So that's why actually this future study is very important. Young people need to think about the future, especially the preferable future. What is their preferable future for them and for their organization, for the country as a whole? So we need this kind of generation actually. And that's why this unit is very important. I hope that, with this interview and many other inshallah in the future, I can create this kind of awareness among IIUM community so that everybody can join us.
Inshallah, sir. That's what we hope as well, and hopefully this unit will grow even bigger, and the field of future studies itself will grow bigger towards a more uplifting a future for the future generation as well as the younger generation. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your time.
My pleasure.
So we will end here. Thank you once again, and
thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.